Yeah. All right. So the sewing machine. Now, just out of curiosity, did you all listen to it?
Yes,
I
I did.
yes, I listened and worked on my rug while listening.
It's perfect, isn't it, doing that? And it matters so much that the narrator is good. And I thought that the narrator,
Oh,
plural, were great for this.
Yes.
yeah,
Because it can go either way when there's like a cast recording. Sometimes I find it confusing, with women's voices and men's voices. But in this case, I felt it was extremely clear, and I thought that the talent was good. I thought that the acting was good and the voices were good. Um, so let's just start with the basic question. Did you like the book?
loved the book.
Yeah,
I had definitely you have to read all the way to the end to get the punchline
yeah.
But there are
because it
hints.
all came
There are hints
together.
through it.
What's that, Judy?
There are hints as you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
but that last chapter, if you didn't get to the last chapter, then all
But
of
about
those
three
hints.
chapters about that, when Anne and Jim's family are meeting,
Yeah.
it
Yep,
refers only to Anne's daughter and never gives her a name.
exactly,
Oh, I
You
missed
exactly.
have to
That
that.
pick
was
up on that and say, okay,
yep,
where does she come in? And of course, she comes in at you finally realize she's Ellen.
right, right. I was thinking when I was listening to that last chapter is like, did I hear Ellen's name come up?
No,
Yeah,
not in
and I
that
did
context. No.
exactly, exactly. So it does keep you on your feet.
That is so interesting. I completely missed that. And I felt like I was listening as well as I could. That's the one thing about audiobooks for me sometimes is like sometimes the nuances get lost. Whereas if I'm reading and something doesn't click, I flip back a few pages or I try to figure it out. But when it's an audiobook, I really don't because it's just too difficult. But that's interesting. I completely missed that. So why don't we say right here at the beginning that if you are watching this recorded later on when you get home from work or whatever, there will be spoiler alerts. I don't see how we could really talk about the book with
Yeah,
accidentally doing spoiler alerts. So if you're still reading the book, or you're at the end or whatever, just hold on this video because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be on that, on the channel. So just hold on the video until you have heard all of it because the ending really is good, isn't it?
Yes.
It
it's
all came
fantastic.
together. Yeah, it all came together for me. I have to say, I was really, really enjoying all of the different stories, and I was enjoying them coming at intervals because, sometimes when a book is structured this way, have you ever read a book where it goes from person to person or from time to time? And sometimes when it flips out of your favorite story and it goes to a different story, you're like, oh, Jesus, how long are we going to be here? I can't wait to hear the rest of the last story. With this story, I thought all of the stories were so strong and like just compelling that I was really happy to return to each person.
I think for me, um, I was very impressed with the way the author um, very quickly when she switched to a new chapter, very quickly she gave us hints in case we kind of were lost where we were again.
Yeah.
It was not hard to follow at all. She
No.
did an exceptional job at giving us these little details that would jog my memory. Oh yeah, that's what happened in the 1950s or in 1918 or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that really was helpful because nobody had similar names or similar stories or anything like that, but it was just a question of, again, it's a symptom of listening rather than reading. You
Right,
hear the name and it's like Ruth, Connie, and you need a reminder of some
right.
sort. So yeah, she was,
Exactly.
but it
But
was
you always
remarkable.
saw the connection.
Yeah, that's it. It was remarkably uncomplicated. Did you think?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there were enough characters that I thought, okay, I have to remember which one was Ruth, which one was Connie, And Fred, I didn't have a problem with for some reason. Fred stood out, and Ellen.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have problems with them, but the older characters, you know, it's like, you know, which was the great grandmother, which one was the grandmother, which one was the mother,
Yeah.
you know, figure.
Do you think, for me, Fred really stood out because almost from the very beginning, you kind of, I had the idea that he's going to be a main player in this story, you know, because the place was unexpectedly given to him, and that first of all is like that little clue of, oh, okay, so there's a reason why they wanted him to have this place, you know, and that made me super curious. And
where's
such a pull in my heart.
You three obviously listen to audiobooks.
Yes.
What were the accents of the people reading? Were they
Very
Brits? Were they Scots?
They
Scots.
were, yes.
Yeah, very good. I didn't get the impression it was like an American doing a Scot.
No, it was not forced. It was definitely genuine.
Yeah, they were very good.
Did anybody feel, maybe I'll switch it a little bit.
Yeah.
How did people feel about Fred's reaction to learning about what his real background was?
I found it a bit annoying.
Yeah.
I felt his anger was a little stretched. Like, I was waiting for him to tone it down a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
When, you know, she would get into how her father responded to the news that she was like, surely he's going to go, oh my gosh, no wonder.
Right.
Okay, now it all makes sense. Like this big epiphany kind of feeling instead of this anger.
I never got the sense that he felt remorse for being so hard on his mom. I thought that they had a better relationship than that.
Yes.
That he would have been a little more oh my gosh, Mom, like you say, I am so sorry you went through all of this.
Had no idea.
But he was a little bit teed off for the fact that she left just after.
That's right.
At the time of his leaving, and she had, or, you know, just after the death of his grandfather. So I think he was sort of still teed off about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I had pondered that whole situation as well, because I was thinking about how, in my own family, having very recently gone through something similar, in some ways, just how each person is processing their own emotions of their lives in this person's story and the broader family. And, you know, that was interesting because, again, she's 60, so we're guessing, well, he was born in 80, so we know how old he is, in his 40s. And so I would kind of think he would be 35, sorry. Good math. He would be beyond that sort of thought process. But when grief is hitting and you're working through all those feelings, it's just about how I feel at that time. And it's hard to really see, oh, I can see Mom needs this or whatever. But
well, I felt like the writer had set him up to be sentimental and caring and loving.
True.
Because he didn't throw the sewing machine away, and he was fascinated by the history and not at all feeling weirded out about using the machine. So, you know, masculinity was not an issue.
Yeah.
You know, it just felt a little contrived. that he was as angry as he was.
Yeah, I mean, he was angry. He was weirdly angry about finding out that the mother had had a sister too. And it was like,
Right,
why is he even angry about that? Like, why is he crying
right,
about this? I don't understand
But
at all.
in the long run, she didn't.
Right. She
right.
didn't know.
That's right. She didn't know. But it was for me, while I think the book was really well written, I thought the parts with him were the least well written. Like I thought those were weird, like inconsistent reactions for someone who's emotionally a smart person. And I just thought the whole thing with Samantha, the girlfriend coming, it was so obvious that she was going to come and they were going to have a massive bust up. I thought for a book that had so many parts that were so puzzling and cagey and smartly done, the parts with Fred I thought were really sort of caricature-ish a little
What
bit.
do you think? What do you think Samantha's role in this was then?
I think it was just a stepping off point to show like the point of no return that he would settle down in that setting and not sell the house. Uh,
Hmm.
I think she just functioned as like an ending for his old life. But she was such a caricature because she was such an ass, right? Like she comes and everything is wrong.
Oh,
You know,
oh
she's
yeah.
so
The
unlikable.
animals.
Looking at her manicured nails. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me? Am I going to
exactly.
actually be required to work? You
Exactly.
know, yeah.
Yeah, she was so thoroughly unlikable. It would like for me, I would have liked that whole segment more if it was like a bit more heartrending, like, oh, the distance is going to keep us apart, or we haven't been dating long and I've come to the decision that, this is more important to me than my life there. But like the way that she got written out as just this like miserable, selfish person was a bit of a cop out to me. Like that was my biggest problem with the book. Um,
I agree with that, Deanna. I think that um, I would have I don't need to like every character,
yeah.
but I think that um, that was a little dramatic.
Yeah, it was a bit. It
That
was a bit.
I wouldn't see him hooking up with a gal like that from the get go.
Exactly. Exactly. It was very inconsistent because if he had like a complete sort of coming of age moment, right? Like he does like some kind of weird turn on a dime personality wise. We didn't know enough about him before to know that there was this crazy transformation. So all we know is that he was dating this girl that he was fairly crazy about, who was a complete jerk. And then it
Right.
made me immediately question his character because it's like, well, if he's a good person, then why would he ever have been with her in the first place?
I
Exactly.
think his character changed though when he moved.
Yes, his character changed, and we do have that little hint that he didn't have long relationships.
That's right. That's true.
Remember, the mom was saying, and what about, I don't remember her names.
Oh, you're right about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that whole idea of when I forget who it is, somebody was speaking about how his life was basically being interwoven with these people. He was holding the packages, and once he was settling in and making friends with his new neighbors and people watching him sew and all these things, I think we're kind of getting a glimpse of his transformation that maybe,
Yeah, I
oh,
mean,
maybe that's the whole reason they left him the house, because they saw that he was not going in a good way with all these gals.
That's true.
I
That's true.
didn't think about that.
yeah.
That's true.
And that he needed the stability of that place.
And the cat.
And
And
the cat, yes,
He needed
the cat needed
Krabby.
to get rid of.
Krabby.
Needed Krabby.
And remember how surprised the mom was that he didn't rehome it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was very surprised at that, it seemed. So maybe
and I'm
that's,
so glad because I think that Krabby had a big part too in grounding
There's a
him.
reason why he named her Krabby too, because originally she didn't come with a name.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's just funny. I love the book and I think it's really well written and it is a first novel, right? This is her premiere novel.
oh,
So that's kind of remarkable in and of itself.
Kidding.
but
That
it
may
was
also be why she's had more problems with the male character than a female
exactly.
character.
Exactly. I was going to say, for me, there were a few, like not problems, right? The book is the book and I'm not the author, so it's like not up to me. But um, the parts that I liked the least were parts that involved interactions with male characters that I didn't understand the dynamic. Like, firstly, the daughter and father, right? And the father
Oh,
and disowning the daughter. And that was like super
that
awful
was
and
triggering.
scary.
That was triggering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like, it scared me. I thought he was going to kill her at some point. But then there was even like a time later with Donald and Jean, and they're such a good couple, but she was so
Yeah.
angry with him when he came home with one arm. I really thought that there was going to be another one of those awful problems because I just couldn't tell by the writing like what the rapport was like a few times between men and women. But it wasn't between women and women. With women and women, I could always perfectly understand what the tone was. But with men and women, and even at the end with Ellen and, well, not the end, but like the recent storyline with Ellen and what's his name, Fred. Even some of those interactions I found confusing. Like I just couldn't get a read on what the feeling was. Like I thought Fred was going to go for the neighbor Wendy. Like I thought things were building up there with her and her kids, and then
Oh,
that
yeah.
turned into
Yeah. Yeah.
I
so.
think I fell asleep during that part. It's not ringing a bell.
Oh, he had a great, like his neighbor was really sweet and she kept asking him for favors with watching her kids. And he was like,
Her husband was always out of town.
yeah, husband was always
Oh, I do remember that. I do.
Yeah. And that was his very first sewing assignment,
Yep.
was making
Oh.
bags for the boys.
For the kids, yes. I remember now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He put himself up against the wall. What it kind of made me think about actually was the whole hooked rug process of saying, yes, I'm going to do this piece. And I know that this person is expecting it. And oh, cracker, I've never put myself in this kind of a deadline before, but because I care about this person, I want to do this for them. That was
Well,
a
and
really
also
nice
I
personal
think the whole memory thing of the one time he did sit for the younger son while the older son was taken to the hospital for a broken arm or something.
Oh, yeah.
And Fred made
Table
the
kite, just like he
bed.
had when he was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with you, Deanna. I thought that all of those memories and, doing stuff for the boys, and even the fact that the boys wanted Krabby,
Yeah,
I thought that they were kind of on a course there,
totally.
and
I thought we were really going somewhere with Wendy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was funny. There was something about this book that seemed to me to be kind of a recurring theme thought that we could really think about and hash out. The theme of kind of secrets, keeping secrets.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of that in this book, and some are good and some are bad, and some seem like they're kept for no reason, and others are kept to the grave kind of secrets. Everybody's got some kind of secret happening, you know?
Yeah.
I was thinking on that a little bit. Obviously big ones like the child and the changing of the last name and the family line kind of changing.
But we know nothing about the mother. Like, who did she go visit? Like, who is this friend? That was a secret, unless I fell asleep. Was that ever talked about?
I don't.
Lucas.
Oh,
Lucas,
yeah,
he just
which
gets
mother?
mentioned, but nothing.
Yeah,
Like
Nothing
she
ever
was
happened with
traveling?
that.
Yeah,
So
no, I think did she go by herself when she took off?
yes,
Okay.
but she went to
But
go
apparently
visit
she came
someone.
back talking about somebody called Lucas all the time.
Oh, I
Oh,
missed that too. I missed that too. Oh,
Maybe
wow.
is this going to be a series? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I just want to be clear. At the end, the girl Ellen who makes the jewelry and Fred are not related, right? Because his mother.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct.
I thought,
They are
oh, this
not
is bad.
related. His
Not biologically related, right?
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
His grandmother was the nurse to Ellen's mother.
Yeah, that's right. I thought that part was so nice about Connie and how she sought out the mother, Ruth, right? Isn't it Ruth? And,
Yeah.
realized she was pregnant and offered to help with those uniforms.
Yep.
For me, that was one of my favorite parts of the story. And the fact that the dad, now, what's the dad's name going to be now? Connie's
Alf.
husband.
Alf.
Yes.
Alf.
Yes.
Alf.
And he's the chess player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just loved that part. They were my favorite couple in the whole book, those two. And I didn't get enough of them, like I didn't get enough of those two because I just loved how it was introduced, like Connie and her mom. No, her mom's Connie. Her mom's who's Connie's mom? Is Connie's mom Ruth?
Kathleen.
Kathleen, thank you. That's it. That's it.
Kathleen. Yep.
Yeah. And how I felt like the dad, Al, died so soon into their storyline. And I was so sad because he seemed like such a nice guy with the chess group.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
that part I felt like the rug got pulled out because I was just getting into those characters and getting invested. And then it felt like that storyline ended, but you didn't have a sense yet that you would see some of those characters later. But
Do you feel like the little detail about how the letter that was mailed by Ellen's grandmother for Ruth, it slipped inside of a phone booth?
Yeah.
How was that found?
Okay, you have to read the prologue.
Oh.
Prologue, some kid who's totally out of the story. It's a 2-page thing or whatever. He's working at the hospital and he's told to go demolish this phone booth, which is no longer in use.
And in the audiobook.
Oh.
I didn't remember that at all.
Remember that?
No.
I think that was in the audiobook.
It's not in the audiobook.
Whoa.
That's a major.
He's told to go and he breaks it all down and it's near the end of the day and he's like, oh fudge, I gotta do this. And he takes a hammer and he breaks it all down and he finds his envelope.
Oh, thanks.
And it's the end of the day, so he says, I'll just finish it tomorrow. And he goes home and on his way home, he mails the envelope.
Holy moly.
Well, that.
Wow, there we go.
No, that's crazy.
That's one of those little niggly details that was really bothering me.
Yeah, that's funny because that's one of those secrets. And then there was the other one about the way that the secret emerged for Fred about the dead sister, right? That emerged in an awkward, catastrophic way. And then the secret in the bobbin. There's lots of little secrets. And the weird thing about the secrets for me was that none of them were like really big secrets, but I guess to the person, maybe they were. I continued through the book to be confused about Jean's, what she wrote in the bobbin, like Donald and I are in trouble, wish us well.
Yeah, why was that such a big deal?
I don't know. I was thinking she wrote like I buried the body of my boss who I killed, and here are the
right.
It's like not a big secret. I was super confused because it was almost like getting a fortune cookie that like sucked. And it's kind of
just something she felt she had to do. It was her way of saying goodbye and good riddance.
It was it was her rebellion, I guess, because she was so nervous while she was doing it. She was looking over.
Yeah, but why would she be nervous about saying Donald and I need to go? I mean, that's that doesn't seem to me, I don't have enough reference to what was going on during that rebellion, I guess,
Yeah. It
to
didn't seem like a big
understand
secret.
why that was such a big deal.
Yeah. You know, it's like maybe part of it was that she was like reminding herself why she was making this major decision and going with Donald and leaving her dad. Maybe, but I felt fairly dissatisfied too with like just that whole secret.
It had to connect the stories.
Yeah.
To be
It it was a function. It was a device for sure.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah. I just
That,
wish it was big.
yeah, yeah, I wasn't satisfied with that either.
Yeah,
It felt contrived again.
yeah. And what about the dad? Like I think we agree he was a bastard, but
Mhm.
again, he was. I mean, I wish like there were moments
You're
where
talking about George?
yeah, Jean's dad.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's like there were fleeting moments where I half understood where he was coming from because he was responsible for other men's jobs or
Yeah.
you know, there were fleeting moments, but I felt like he was so strongly written as a villain that even though I half understood his point of view, um I just couldn't like him. I felt again like he was a bit of a caricature. It seemed like the kind of villain characters were, for me, a little bit exaggerated. Um,
Well, I think the suffragette movement was on the rise, and the women were starting to feel enabled, just starting,
yeah,
just starting to feel enabled. And I think that probably at that time, there there was a real, you're my daughter, you need to do what you're told, and you need to go to work and bring in the money.
yeah,
And she's like, but, you
yeah.
know,
And in the absence of the mother, right? Because that I felt like
yeah,
that could have pulled on my heartstrings a lot more if that
yes,
angle was worked up a little bit. Like he's overcompensating and he loses his mind now and then because it's so much for him to raise a daughter. But there was not a lot
yeah.
of emphasis on that angle. It was just like, man, he was black and white. He was immovable. Um, and then take that further sort of injustice of him opening her envelope and responding for her. Uh,
Oh, heck no.
yeah,
That's
right.
a
That was
that's
frustrating.
a felony nowadays. You can't open somebody else's mail.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, really grating.
No, you can't. That's true. That is a felony.
Yeah. That was there were some parts that really, hey Veronica, um there were some parts that were really upsetting, but I there was a point in the book where because the set some of it being set in 1910 and then moving
Oh
forward,
shoot.
it had potential to
Oh
be
shoot.
do that. It had potential to be like violent, right? Like with the strike scenes and all that stuff. It was
Yeah,
like, and it was making me a little nervous because I don't like violence like at all. But it didn't ever go there. It at a certain point I realized they're not going to take you to a place where people are beating anybody up or none of these women are going to get beaten. And I don't know when that moment was, but I know I kind of relaxed because all of the storylines were fraught with a little bit of tension and characters who opposed the character who we were following. And there were these constant moments I thought of danger. Um, and I was
but
really,
I
really
think
over time.
she brought us back really well from those moments, Deanna,
Yeah,
to the sewing machine.
that's true.
She and it was mentioned more than once how therapeutic it is to sit down at a sewing machine and everything else gets wiped away.
Yeah.
And I think that
The Amazon thing.
Yeah, you opened it up.
the 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 reference to being calmed and being relaxed was right after you might have come across a scene where it became violent. Between that or, going to the store to go buy a compact
Yeah.
or going across the street to buy a
That was rough.
platform.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the terrible cliffhanger with Donald when that was a really irritating, frustrating part too, when he decided to go away to fight without speaking to his,
Oh,
you know,
that's a big bucket of
yeah, that was,
yeah.
So what is probably typical of the period.
it probably was. It probably was. It just seemed like they had such a close relationship, you
I
know.
agree.
It seems
Yeah.
like he would have had a lot more. I just felt like he should have had a lot more concern for how she felt because she gave up
Consideration.
everything for him.
Exactly. Consideration. She was 18.
Yeah,
She was 18 years old
yeah.
and they were never, ever married. So why do you think they were never, ever married?
I think she probably got pregnant and then they just didn't bother.
Well, but she ragged on her granddaughter for living with
Yeah,
somebody without being married.
yeah,
So, that's
yeah.
why didn't they do it?
It seems like they should have. It seemed like they had several bad turns early, but then it seemed like they really got
Couldn't
lucky
afford
with
it.
that house. Yeah, maybe part of it was money, but then they did get the use of the house for like less money.
I mean, that should have helped them immensely
Yeah.
financially
Yeah,
because
but then
moving
they
is
had two kids.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then she was on her second baby by that time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's hard to tell. I loved him at the beginning. I loved him in those early scenes in his ideals, and I loved him as a leader. And and then he just worked a job and then he went away and he was a soldier and we didn't see that side of him anymore. And it was like my favorite part of that Donald character just ended early in the book. And then it was like he was a good guy. Like he was a good guy. He came home and she was such a good wife and a like likable person that she welcomed him home and she tried to understand and she tried not to say sarcastic things when it was right there. They were both such likable characters, but I think she emerged out of those scenes. I think she really emerged as the main character and the heroine, like over Donald, who originally was like the leader and the strong character. I think it was Jean in the end who was stronger and emerged more as the hero heroine. Because he
Do
never,
you,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you think that a chapter or two with the experiences Donald had in the war would have helped or hurt the story?
I don't think it would have added anything.
No?
Hmm.
I agree.
The story it was really a woman's story.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree
Or
with
it was the story that around it. What he did in the war had nothing to do with the sewing machine.
Okay. Fair enough. Yep.
I can't say it was necessarily the woman because women all the time because Fred obviously was not a woman, but
Right. Right.
since
For me, even though the book was called The Sewing Machine, I felt right until the end um like the vehicle, the sewing machine is just a vehicle for all of these conversations.
oh,
And
definitely.
I felt like the story was really about home and what home meant to like each couple or each character set. because home moved and changed from person to person, and even within stories, couples moved and life changed. But the sense for me, the sense of a physical home, like the interior of a home, was very strong in all of the stories. And that never changed. I forgot about the sewing machine often, but I was constantly reminded about how important it is for home to be safe and cozy, and for the right people to be there. And for me, the story, I mean, you can't call the story home because that wouldn't have been as interesting, but it was a great device that they did with the sewing machine. But I kept coming back to comparing the different homes that we saw through the story.
And the notebooks were the continuity.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It didn't matter where that sewing machine was. Those notebooks were the glue.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And
she had a good structure going. She had a good device.
yeah, yes. I'm fascinated by the notebooks. And we all talk about how important labels are for our rug hooking pieces.
Yeah.
I also think, I really should have created a notebook for all the pieces that I've hooked with the stories.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are going to care, 50 years from now, but look how important it was for these women and their families to interconnect, 100 years.
Yeah. That's true.
And complete random strangers that they helped by doing what they did.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in handwriting, and the fact that Fred could identify the handwriting in that very last chapter, and was like a huge epiphany.
Yeah.
As to how those two families got connected.
Yeah, that was a great device too, because for him, he didn't have the journals, but he had the Marmite jars and
Yes.
like all the stuff that was collected in the Marmite jars. And that was effectively his version of the journals, because they reminded him of all of the little things that he thought his grandparents kept. And
Yep.
it was like his version of the same exact kind of collection.
Right.
I thought that was smart. And again, it was another sort of little hat tip to home, right? All these little food jars,
Yep.
have around. Yep. Yeah, you're a little pack rat and you save everything.
Yeah, nothing wasted.
No, no, no waste. No, and then that brings me to the thought about the character Ellen at the end, who Fred does end up. I always want to say Keith. I struggle with the name Fred. He just didn't seem like a Fred to me.
Do you know my husband is Keith?
Oh, no. Isn't that funny? Yeah, I keep almost saying Keith.
That's him.
Is it, is there anything in the fact that what Ellen did was like deconstructionist jewelry with the machine parts? I mean, I don't know the answer.
But the fact that that little oration at the end, that was not the elevator speech, but the longer version, was so powerful.
What Ellen said?
What Ellen said about what she did with these sewing machine pieces did not seem like her.
No, it did not seem like her. Come here, baby. It did not seem like her.
All right, so you agree with me.
I do. She made some kind of weird disclaimer like, oh, this is what, here comes the version from the Grant Company or whatever. She said something like it was here's the version, the explanation that she would give to the people who were like writing the grant or signing up for the jewelry line, whatever.
Right.
She was speaking in words that were very stilted and like more like a speech than authentic language.
Right.
But it
Right.
came out, the sentiment was great. I thought I thought that was a bit of a cop out too in terms of the writing, was to give her that kind of mouthful of text that dovetailed perfectly with everything that had happened. But it's not that it was unexpected, because we did expect there to be a connection with that last character. But it seemed a little bit contrived to me, that whole scene.
Remember, she's probably one of the few people who's university trained, however.
True. That's true.
Do you think that that speech was written before the character was written?
Interesting. I got the sense, like, the way that I pictured her, starting with the yard sale, I pictured that she was, yeah, I'll make him talk. I pictured that
Oh,
she was kind of like, I thought maybe she was a bit gothic, or I pictured her as more kind of an extreme art school character, like doing this like deconstructionalist work. And I
right.
pictured her as a bit avant-garde and edgy. But as the scenes kept coming, I started to think of her more as like a sort of soft character, soft spoken. She was very sort of cowed to like her parents and her dad and her mom. When they spoke to her, she was kind of in their pockets. And she didn't seem like the rough kind of artist, avant-garde artist that I thought she was going to be. So I was confused by her for a while. And I liked her. I just couldn't get a read on why she was there. And I missed Wendy.
Yeah. I just got the feeling that the author had written that final thought, um, and then worked it into a character at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like for this story to work, just like a mystery or any book that spins on a kind of a puzzle, I feel like part of it has to be written in reverse. Oh my God, Joss, look. Joss, look, who is that? Who is
This is
that?
Sadie.
Sadie, oh my God.
Oh,
God,
Every
look at
time
that.
you show
God.
Buttons, she
Sadie
said,
wants to come.
hi.
Oh my God, look at that
hi,
soft.
Hi.
Sadie.
What pretty
Sadie.
eyes. She got the Cleopatra eyes.
She's a very noble girl.
Yeah, but look, she's got
Oh,
eyeliner on. Oh, Buttons
What's
wants
she
to come
think?
back. Buttons
Oh,
like,
you want
where's
to say hi to
Sadie?
Buttons?
Where's
Look,
Sadie?
look. Oh, do you see
look at
Buttons?
beautiful Sadie.
Look,
Sexy
look, say
Sadie.
hi. You say
Hey,
hi.
Sadie.
Oh.
They are
She
too.
started out on my YouTube channel when she was a puppy. If you go back to the very beginning, she's a little licky. She's 5 years
my
old now.
God.
Anyway,
Oh my.
Buttons.
He's such
Hi,
a
sweet girl.
dear. Dear he
Oh.
goes.
How
Yeah,
are you doing?
are you doing okay, Jess? How are you feeling? Michelle wants to know. She's on her scooter. She's on her scooter right now because she's got that stupid boot on. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. Yeah, she's got her boot on. And then let us get back to the thing. Here, give me your boot. Yep, there she is.
How long?
Don't move it
How
too
long
hard.
do you?
Don't move it. Yeah.
Goodness. How
Yeah.
long do you have to wear that?
Until it doesn't hurt anymore. And they're pretty
Yeah.
sure it's healed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Jerks. So
I've been thinking about that all day.
really, really mad. It was a good thing the police didn't come, because I said a lot of things that I think I could have gotten in a lot of trouble for too. Joss, can you fill me up some water, please?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, or I'll pop it too, because you're in a wheelchair, whatever. Yeah. So, but what do you all think about the idea? I mean, I think it was necessary to work backward at some point. Once, I mean, imagine if you write a story like this and the characters are woven together. There needs to be, you need to keep consulting a piece of paper that shows you where they meet, and it has to be paced right, because it could be the kind of a story, and I can't think of an example, maybe more like a murder mystery, where everybody meets at one time and they're all connected or related, maybe like an Agatha Christie, and you don't know that they're all connected or related. But you find out it's kind of a reverse. You find out as the story goes on that they are all related, and some people are using false names. Well, this story was the opposite because we had all of these people and we kept running parallel train tracks with them at different times, and you figured logically they had to line up, but you didn't know how. And then bit by bit, you realized she paced it. I think the revelations, I think she paced very well because they didn't all come at once. And it was bit by bit, it was like, oh, that's her mom. Okay. And then I spent a lot of time in my head sort of backpedaling and going, okay, so wait a minute. If that's her mom, then who's the dad? Okay, I got it. And I did it a few times when I made wrong connections because I was confused about characters and I thought, this is a person in this person's family, because there were enough characters to have that problem. But again, I think that's an audiobook problem, symptom.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think the message was then? What do you think the overall message was? Not to keep secrets? I mean, if we're going back to the secrets thing, I mean, what do you think the overall
Does it have to be a message? Can it just be a good story?
Well, she has to have wanted to say something, especially this being her first book. Do you think then maybe it was based on real life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is it?
Yes. So we looked it up and it did really happen with the 12 women. And I think it was like 1,400. There were so many people that strike for these 12 women. Yes. And as far as the story and a meaning, I think every story, everybody's going to have their own meaning. But one of the things that I drew from it, maybe it's because of my age, and maybe it's because it's my focus, whatever, is I think a lot about the textile arts and outside of our textile art bubble.
Yeah.
Honestly, no one has ever really cared what I do. Nobody. It's not a big deal. If I give them something, they might care. And if they don't make things themselves, maybe it's a little bit different now than it was 30 years ago, but I would just get sweet. And then, big what, never mind the fact that it took, so many hours. And so one of the things that I took away from this book was just the deep meaning of the time spent at this machine. And this machine, how it affected so many lives and brought them together by the work of women's hands, something that hasn't really, again, outside of our bubble, been given a lot of respect and honoring. I mean, people get so excited about a soccer game or a football game or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, and paintings. And I can get excited about those things too. I'm like, well, do you know how long it took me to make this thing? I mean, I know I'd be begging for your approval to really talk to you about that. But in my heart, like, I spend so much of my life alone doing this because I care about it so much. So for me, that's the meaning I got.
That's such that's a beautiful spin on it. I felt like I agree with Judy. I don't know that it has a message, but I think, again, one of the themes that came up for me was destiny. Like, if these people, like, they didn't know that they were woven together and they all kind of, their stories all overlapped, and even Fred got going with the sewing, and then he's obviously going to fall in love with Ellen, and she's even involved in it, and they all are involved and they didn't know, and they figured it out as parts of the story were revealed, just like they were to the reader. But I did have a sense of destiny, that I didn't know how it was going to end until the very end. Like, I didn't know that the book was about to end because I wasn't near my phone while it was playing, and I didn't know if there were 4 more hours. So when it ended, I was like a little bit confused because
it was quick.
Yeah, I mean, it was felt abrupt, but if I'd been looking at it, I didn't think it was paced poorly, but if I'd been looking at it, I would have been like, okay, well, here it comes. Like, here comes the finale. It's like the band is coming out for the 3rd encore. This is the end. But
Do you
I was
think
a little
that
bit
there's
confused.
a connection between the fact that what Jean did was verify that sewing machines worked, and Ellen was taking them apart.
Oh,
Ooh,
interesting.
interesting. Oh, I like
Well,
that.
and in 1918, she was also taking them apart to clean them and
Yeah,
to
yeah.
fix them. That's an interesting thought.
That is an interesting thought. That's another nice angle. Makes you wonder if the author, and I'm not diminishing the author, but it makes you wonder, and it doesn't matter if she built that in or not, but that's clever. That works really well. Because
That
it
is a
fits
very
the story.
circular, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
very circular
It is.
thought there.
That's very
Because,
good.
yeah,
I like that because if it is circular, but if everything comes undone at the end, it sort of suggests it starting over, right? Suggests a continuity. That's interesting. I like that too.
and turns into something else.
Yeah. Turns into something else that's like more sort of useful for that day because Ellen says many times that she can't understand why he wants to save the machines. And he keeps saying, I can't understand why you want to take them apart.
Right, right, right.
Like that opposing point of view,
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
No, that was good. I think after this discussion, um, yes, I really, really liked the book a lot because there is a lot of food for thought. But I do feel like there were some rough ends.
I do too.
You're never going to find a perfect book.
No, no, no.
No, and and I think that having the time, which you're providing for us, Deanna, to have some conversation about these books, I would not have gotten any further than this was a really sweet book, and I'm so glad I got to the end, how it all nicely tied up together and go on to the next.
Yeah. It's always good to talk about books because we all remember different things and different things are meaningful to different people. And it also
Right.
depends on who you are and where you are in life and if you've had any similar relationships or people come through your life, then you react differently to the characters than you would otherwise.
I have to say, you talking about that the character Philip Wright.
Say that
So
again.
Philip Wright, do y'all remember him?
Yes, yes,
Kathleen's
yes,
first husband.
yes. Yeah.
So I'm
Oh,
not going to spend our whole time here, but just personally, Deanna knows I've had a family death with my grandmother and a man in our family. Our family's last name is Wright. And I will
oh,
just say the character in the book is similar to the character in my family. So
oh,
that whole
trigger
time
my,
I was like, if he doesn't leave this story or get murdered or something, I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm going to do. It was hitting real close to home. So I was glad they kind of cut him short, other than he was just taking the money and then he was gone because she needed to move on with her life. I'm happy for her.
He was such an extra bastard, though, because
Yeah.
not only did he take all her money and disappear, he had her get the most expensive machine there was and
Yes. And
not
not
pay
pay
for
for it.
it. I
Yeah.
mean, what was the point
Yeah.
of that? Just not getting just any machine versus the best one they had? Like, what was the
Right.
point of that?
do
Yeah.
you
Extra
do
jerk.
you think maybe he was feeling guilty about what he was going to do to her
Mm.
and made sure that she was set up, even though she was going to be left with the
But with all the money that he stole, couldn't he at least have bought her the machine?
Well, I was going to say, with personal experience, somebody like that is not going to feel guilty, I don't think, and make sure that somebody's set up for what.
Yeah.
They're just going to be the snake that they are. So,
Yeah.
and I found that a special irony, especially because last August I actually got a Singer sewing machine. I can take y'all over to it right now. I have one up there, and then I have one right here that I got. This, look at this beauty. Can you
Oh,
see it?
wow. That is a
Isn't that
beauty.
beautiful?
Oh, that
Okay,
is gorgeous.
this is
All right,
this
girls.
last thing. Wait, my mother cross stitched this before she passed away for me,
Oh,
and it
oh, that
matches.
is
Okay,
it totally matches.
so yeah, this was a good book for me to read.
Oh,
But
that
I
is
enjoyed it.
so good.
Thank y'all.
Okay, my turn.
Yes.
So, my grandmother was a proper Victorian woman. However, during the war, Second World War, she made socks to help the men.
Oh my goodness.
This is
Oh,
a sewing machine.
wow. Wow. That is
Singer
really
for the
cool.
girls. Oh God, that's such a funny shape too. That looks so old.
I've never
It is
seen anything
very
like that.
old.
It's got a
It's
huge amount of
very old.
space. Yeah, it looks like a small machine, but it looks like it's got a huge amount of space top to bottom, like for something
Yes,
really thick. Oh, that is so beautiful. That's the box for it.
it is the box.
Oh man, I've never seen the box. I always see the machines, but I never see the boxes.
Yeah, that's why it's taped up
That is
because
so,
there's
oh,
the actual box.
that is absolutely beautiful. Isn't there something about specifically sewing, like clothing and things like that? Isn't there something that's like especially sort of resourceful about using a sewing machine? I mean, even more so than like being thrifty with rug making and that. I just feel like the characters in the book who sew, like they like Connie, like she didn't have to keep the sewing machine. The salesman told her she could return it. Like what something about she thought about it, and something in her mind made her say, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but maybe I can turn this into a business, you
Oh,
know.
it's Kathleen. That was her mother.
Kathleen, that's it. Yep, it's Kathleen. But
And same with Fred.
same with Fred. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know what he was doing, but he knew he had time and he needed to fill it up.
Yeah. Now, is there a relationship between Kathleen and Fred?
I don't think so. I only generational.
Yeah. Because Kathleen and Ellen would have been relatives, right? Fred is
I'm
the odd
lost.
man
I
out.
don't know.
I know it is. I should have written down the family tree.
Do you normally do that when you read the book?
No,
Do you dissect it that much? No,
no,
I don't either. I just live with all the loose ends and carry.
exactly. I assume the parts that are really meaningful that I'll remember them.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
I brush up on the names because I just finished it like yesterday, but I had to brush up on the names by looking the names up. Because I knew I would never, and I still have them written down, and I'm still saying the wrong names. Because it is a lot of names, and
A
it is
lot
a
of
lot, and
people.
I wrote down the years because the beginning story is 1911. Um, so that's the strike. And then it goes to Kathleen and Connie's story starts when Al is alive in 1954 with the scene at the chess club. And then it goes, Ruth's scene is 1980. And I have to say, that's like surprising. Like, it's surprising to me that being pregnant at that time would even be a conversation. Doesn't that seem late for people to be that worried about her finishing up her certification or a practicum or whatever it was because she's pregnant and not married in 1980?
think it was just becoming a thing. Like my parents were divorced, and I remember that was just, to me, culturally, it seemed like that was just becoming a normal thing. So
Okay.
I think things like unwed mothers and divorces and things like that were becoming more mainstream rather than, kind of thing.
That's interesting. And of course it's Edinburgh, so it's not,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't get like the nuances of I mean, I've been to Edinburgh and everybody seems the opposite of uptight, but I'm thinking about like just in terms of the 80s, like the kinds of shows like, coming out of the 70s um
Hmm.
like overt sexuality
Yeah.
and coming into the 80s and shows like Moonlighting where there's like real, it's quite racy, you know,
Right.
and then thinking like why, I mean, it could be that it was specifically her family and she knew that her family was going to be upset about her being pregnant.
Yeah.
And there's another bastard there, the guy, what's the guy's name who she was with, who took off, the American who never wrote her back. uh
Yeah.
York. His last name was York.
that's it.
York.
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Is
You're
it
good.
Andrew York?
Named after a president.
That's right. He was somebody or other S. York,
Oh, that's
like
right.
Harry S. Truman, except I think it was Andrew S. York.
Okay.
They never used the S because he was named after, I think, Harry S. Truman. So they had the S, which didn't mean anything in the middle.
So funny. Yeah, the some of the I mean, it wasn't like, it was almost like, was Fred there? I just want to say, hey, Veronica, good to see you.
Ah, we have a real person.
Yeah, you made it. I was prompting you before, but you never have to put your thing on, but it is nice to see your face. Um,
Hi, nice to see you too.
oh,
Hey,
thanks.
Veronica.
No,
Yep, I'm usually working, so I'm not able to see you guys. I work for the school
oh.
district, so but I wasn't able to finish the book. So
There were some spoiler alerts, but you can always go back to it. And we recorded this too, so you can always go back to this too. But yeah, hopefully we didn't spoil it too much. It is excellent at the end. We didn't say the actual ending, so that'll be fun.
yeah,
But
I know
yeah,
your kids are so cute.
oh,
They're
thank you.
adorable.
They are such good kids. Neither of them had a good first day at school today, so we're gonna hope for better
Oh
days.
And the
no.
puppy's
Yeah,
cute too.
thank
Your
you.
dog.
Thank you. He's
Button.
such a good boy.
Yeah, I have a cat, but yeah, dogs are great. My
Yeah.
parents just lost their dog.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it was yeah.
It's
I go to
something.
their house and walk the dog, and
Oh, it's
you
such a
know,
big deal. It
and
is a
me and
member
my
of the family.
sister, it was so sad.
Oh,
She died at 13 and a half years old.
oh God. Is it
Yeah.
a little dog?
Yeah, she was medium sized actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
passed of diabetes, but yeah.
I was gonna say it's not super old. It's not like it was a super young, passed
Yeah.
away. But oh, so sad. I know they're so nice to have around.
Yeah,
Thank,
they are.
yeah.
Yeah. I wish they lived longer like cats.
I
My
know
cat is 18,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, cat
Well,
18 is
I'm losing my cat and he's 16 and he's got a big old brain tumor growing on his head and has
Mm.
pushed one of his eyes out and
oh, poor
it's
baby.
yeah, it's not good. I don't know how much longer he's going to be around, but
Sorry
you know,
about that.
end of life, we're trying to make it as good as possible and it's clear that his head hurts.
Oh, poor baby. I'm so sorry, Karen. That's so sad.
I mean,
Ladies, I'm sorry, but I have to leave now. Have a
Judy,
all
good
right.
nice seeing you.
See you next month.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We should
Bye-bye.
probably get back to the book.
Well, I was just going to say, what do you think about all, some of the male characters who come in and out are bad? Do you think that Fred is there to be a nice guy?
I do, and I think Alf was the other good guy.
That's true. That's true. I forgot. I loved Alf.
Yep. I would have loved to have gone to the garden with him.
Absolutely. The garden, the chess club. He
Yep.
was sweet. He seemed to be, again, we didn't get a huge insight into his, as a younger man, his personality, but he seemed to be quite an intellectual. Um,
Yeah.
he seemed,
Well, obviously, being head of the chess club, he, you know, that demonstrates something more than being a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or,
yeah,
you know, 8 to 5, whatever the work conditions were. He was more than that.
yeah. And it's like it's almost the fact that when Ruth was pregnant and Connie offered to make those the aprons or the uniforms for her so that she could hide. It was like when Alf heard about that, he was not fazed by it at all, and he was super upset that the dad, when he was told, disowned his daughter over this. So it just
Right.
reinforced that he was like he didn't even have to think about it. Like he didn't even have to think about it. It was just like assumed. Connie just knew without speaking to him about it that he was going to be on board with helping her out and letting her live with the family. And
Right.
he was just a solid guy.
Do you wonder why there was never even a hint about Lillian?
I forget who Lillian is.
Alf and Connie's 5-year-old daughter who died of measles.
Oh God, that's right. Um,
Do you wonder? I mean, why was it kept so secret? There's your secret thing again.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to be a secret, does it? I mean, there's no shame in having measles.
No,
I could see if she died of like,
no.
STD that like the dad gave her or something, that would be something, but measles, yeah, measles is
I
measles.
mean, why do you think that was hidden and locked in a lockbox? And I mean, I don't get that.
It's funny, and it's almost like they ended up having a different daughter, right? They ended up keeping
Yeah,
Connie
yeah.
and her child.
Do
Uh,
you think that they were just so overwrought that
Maybe it was
they
grief.
just couldn't speak of it? I mean,
I don't think it was shameful. I think it must have been grief. I mean, unless there's shame in not being able to get her to the doctors and fix it, I don't know. If it's a money thing that you don't get the right medicine and then you die of measles, but I think measles was pretty formidable even in the 19, well, it would have been, yeah, it would have been like the
it was the
1980s.
early 60s, right? She died in
You're right.
60.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember getting a smallpox vaccination in school in the 70s. I
Yeah.
mean,
Why the secret?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like for me, it was okay that the secrets were small secrets. I was just confused because they were like presented as lots of big secrets. And then when we finally learned what some of these secrets were that were hidden and buried and stuff, it's it's not. I'm not going to say it was anticlimactic, but it was a little bit like I don't get it. I was expecting something of a way bigger reveal, kind of a thing, which isn't to
so
say that it.
yeah, I mean, what was the purpose then in the storyline of that being a secret?
I mean, it seemed.
Especially if the son
Fred.
uh Fred, got so upset about learning that there was a another family member that was never talked about. And it didn't help the storyline.
No, no, and the parents were such good people, and you're right because even the mom didn't know about the sister,
Right,
about her
right.
sister who died. Yeah, that's confusing. That is one of those disconnects for me that doesn't make sense. Again, the thing about the audiobook is it comes at you fast. And
Right.
where there are disconnects like this, I didn't have time to think about it. Like the narrator just moves on to the next chapter and I go, what? And then it's the next story's happening and I forget that I thought that was
Right.
real, you know.
Right. And that's again why having these conversations now is like, oh, well, now wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Why was this a big secret, and what does it do to help the storyline?
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason for it to solve a mystery. It just creates a mystery that does nothing but irritate Fred.
Right.
And we already talked about how Fred doesn't seem like the kind of guy to be really irritated and unkind to his mom
Yeah.
over this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's very inconsistent. There's a lot of behaviors and a lot of scenes that are very inconsistent. And like for me, like I don't like to like do this. Like I don't like in my mind to layer meaning and like dissect so much that I feel I'm being like unfair to the author. But I did get the sense, because it is a first book for her, I did get the sense a few times that she figured out mechanically how to make this plot work by what we were talking about earlier, like working backwards.
Right.
If it's gonna,
Right.
that's the device that this person has a secret, the next person in line finds it out, and then that's how the story spins. Then those secrets have to be in place. But I feel like she was really committed to the mechanics of the book, like to be able to structure and write it the way she did. But I don't
Yeah.
think some of the fill that she put into the different scenarios was strong enough. Um, it seemed to,
Again, I think Ellen's speech at the very end,
yeah,
Ellen's elongated speech at the very end, was written very early.
yeah.
And
I think that's a good assumption.
the author had to figure out how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I know this book had a regular publisher, but I feel like I feel like the manuscript would have definitely benefited if if the editor who represented this book, the agent, went through and said, "Listen, you got to beef this part up here because the reveal isn't big enough, right? For the build up, the reveal isn't big enough. And this part here sounds a little stilted, so soften that a little bit, make it more conversational, less
Yeah.
of a device." I feel like the agent should have done that in quite a few places. But having said that, the story really was so good that I could forgive it for like these weird little bumps, you know,
Yeah.
corners.
Yes. It still worked well, which is a testament
Yeah.
then to the original plot
Yeah.
that she had in her mind.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's hope if she writes another book that hopefully she's gotten some constructive feedback.
Yeah. It's the kind of story. I mean, she wrote this in 2017. So I don't know if she is working on another book or if over the course of her life, because she's probably in her 60s, over the course of her life, maybe she had this brewing and it was many years coming and she kind of like, over drinks and hanging around with friends said, what should I do with this character? How could I tie this character up? It might be that she had the one story in her and she knew what the overarching story would be and that it would start with this strike and it would end many generations later and she was going to use the sewing machine as a device. um, that all makes sense. Um, I didn't get the I didn't get the impression that it was super. I felt like she wanted to tell the story of the strike, but I didn't get the impression that the writing, although the storytelling was great and the story was great, I didn't think the writing was exceptionally great. And it's because some of these tricks for me didn't work that well. And
Did you read that she was a teacher and then a lawyer?
No, no, I didn't.
I read her biography.
Oh,
And she was a teacher first and then a lawyer.
ooh,
And so she was prosecuting a case
yeah.
in my mind.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah.
That was her
Yeah.
the way that she presented each of the periods in history was as a prosecutor.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe there are undertones that we haven't teased out that require more thought about like the fact that it starts with a strike, right? And in an injustice, right? There are people who life is not treating fairly. And
Right.
at the beginning, we have like heroes standing up and saying, it's not good for me if these people, if their lives are going to fall apart. We have to stand up for each other, or what's the point?
Right.
Maybe the argument goes back to that first scene in the strike and the idea that these pigs who are in charge want to save a little bit of money by giving all of these other people a lot of extra work for no extra pay, and anyone who differs is going to be ejected, right? Like the inhumanity of it. Maybe the whole book is a weird kind of opus to um, fairness or justice, or because
But why did the dad have to be such a jerk and throw
maybe
his daughter out?
yeah, maybe he represents the bad guys. I mean, because he is on the
Yeah.
side of the company owners, he agrees with them. He fights on their side. Maybe he just is the one character who represents those old guys who are just a bunch of old bastards. Yeah,
That don't have any respect for women.
have no respect for women, have no concern or sort of don't feel any what's the word, not care, but like when you hey Ted, no sense of sort of compassion or any humanitarian connection to the people who are working for them.
Right.
That
No
is the
empathy.
problem of the Industrial Revolution, and still now.
No empathy.
No
Nothing.
empathy, no empathy. Just the chance of making a little bit more money is enough enticement to ruin other people's lives. I think the dad represents that. And I think a lot of I don't you have to sit down and tease out when I don't think it's an anti-men book, and I think you're right. It's both Alf and Donald is great. Most of the men who stay in the book are good characters and they're good people. But the ones who flit in and out are just like caricatures of jerks that
I
everybody.
think that that's a really good representation because, the guy who got her pregnant, well, he died shortly after, she knew she was pregnant. So we can't really fault him for, yeah, he went back to Chicago, but he was in a car accident and died, which is why he never got any of her letters.
Was that soon after?
It was.
Okay. I missed
That,
it soon after.
yeah, yeah. So we can't fault him.
No, that's true.
Was soon after he went back to Chicago that he was in a car accident and died.
Oh, I totally missed that. I totally missed that.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess she had written, a few letters that were never returned, or, he never wrote back. And then Alf, who was the one who helped her with the letter to her parents.
Yeah.
But Alf wrote a letter separately to what's his name in Chicago, and
God, I totally missed that.
It came back
Okay.
in blue pencil, deceased.
How the hell did I miss that? I bet I hit the button on the thing and it went forward or something. That's a really important part.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And Alf investigated and found out that he had died in a car accident shortly after he went back to Chicago.
That is awful.
So we can't
No, we can't fault him.
disparage him.
No.
That was when she was saying to um to her son, get the names confused, the modern day son,
Fred.
she was telling the story, and at the table,
Yeah.
with tears streaming down her eyes, she said, yeah, he's dead. And he's like, how do you know? And she said, Alf wrote and confirmed that he died in Chicago in a car accident.
Okay. Totally missed that. I remember that scene because I remember how heartless he was to her in that scene.
Yes.
And I remember
Yes.
him saying, "Oh, I thought you said that our dad left us and ran away to York."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the reason that York was never supposed to be spoken. And it's not because of the place, it's because of the last name.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good trick. That was
that was a good trick.
Yeah. And that falls into the destiny thing too, with like the car crash, like is it all destiny that, that Harry or whatever his name was gets her pregnant, goes back to Chicago, dies in a car crash. She replaces a daughter who died earlier, in the household. Um, yeah, I mean it does come together very nicely. It is
It is a
rough,
neat
but
little package, but there are some loose ends where maybe some things could have been filled out a little bit more.
yeah.
I would have loved a little bit more of a vignette between Alf and Connie and Ruth, and
Yeah.
I would have loved a little bit more
Yeah.
of we did get a pretty good vignette with the 1911, 1918 characters,
Yeah.
setting the scene with, the Singer sewing machine factories and the smells. And, I felt like that got filled out pretty well.
Yeah.
I do not feel like it was filled out well during the 1950s.
No, it was like as soon as we were introduced to um not Connie, her mom. Um yeah, it was Connie and Alf. As soon as we got introduced, it was like he was out at the chess thing, and
Yeah.
and Connie's like in her 30s, and I thought, oh crap, that's not good, right? Because a woman in her 30s at that point who's not married, that's a
Right.
problem. So I thought,
Right.
oh, that's not good. And she goes out after her dad, and there's that nice scene. I think, oh, is her dad going to be mad at her because she like followed him there? She's like, bugging him. And then he turns out to be nice, and then Alf appears, and he's really nice and new and all that stuff. And it was such a nice scene, and and it
And
was
then
like,
it
oh,
stops.
and then it stopped, and then when we
It,
return, he dies, like in the next
right,
continuum.
right,
We could have definitely
right.
used, because it was so cozy. And going back to the idea of home, for me, like their home seemed so cozy. They were living there with their adult daughter, but they seemed so companionable. It seemed so comfortable and so, it's like so happy. Like I just wanted a little bit more detail on like the 1950s in their house.
Exactly.
Immediately
Yeah,
died. And then we
yeah,
lost that thread. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because I think, at least for me,
Yeah.
when I look through old magazines and catalogs, the 1950s was a very cozy time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
war was over, people were home. It was a bit of a happy time.
it was a very happy time. And, you know, there were struggles. She was, doing hemming and this and that to make some money, but I never got a description of the house. I
No,
never, I never
no.
got a description of
You know, it would have
um
been handy right then if they told us about the Marmite jars and all of that, because it was that couple who had all those traditions at home and were filling all, it would have like added a lot to make that connection. Like she
exactly.
puts something in a Marmite jar and then writes her name on it, or writes the whatever, and then her signature is on the jar. That would have been helpful. For
Yeah, don't you think? I mean, a
yeah,
little bit of um
hardwiring.
maybe she was uncomfortable about writing about that period of history, but if you're going to set somebody in that period of history, adding a little bit of fluff around, you know, uh, maybe the furniture in the kitchen, or
A little bit
the
more
the
texture.
color of the curtains,
Yeah,
because they're all sewers. I mean, something
exactly.
that could help us connect with that period of history was lacking.
Yeah. There was something like there was a bit of like, and it's like again, it's not fair because it's cracking on the writing, but like there was something rushed in many parts for me, that it was almost like there was this weird cleverness going on for the writer, where something happened in the gap that we didn't know, like Connie gets married to Alf, and we don't know that. Like it's never said that they dated or got together, and then
Right.
we take a long break with another character, and then they are married, and it's like it is cute and clever, and I think it's another device, but it's like, go ahead and put in the happy parts where like people are getting married and having babies. Like, go ahead and put that in too, because like it's not just a stupidity problem where I totally knew who the characters were, but I'm like, oh Jesus, they got married and I didn't even know. Like it's like missing an event that's like really important and you're invested in the characters. It's like
Well,
give me a little bit of that.
well, it's like God, his name is escaping. The
Fred?
final Fred.
Yeah.
Thank
See, it's
you.
a hard name to remember, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I keep
I
saying
mean, when the 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 chapter before he's introduced, she's still pregnant with him. And then the next time he's introduced, he's 5.
yeah. Yeah.
He's 5 and he wants a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's when it gets
wait a minute.
confusing.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. There was a lot of that. And as soon as it happened a couple of times, I thought, okay, she's doing this on purpose. Like she's fast forwarding, she's giving us just enough and she's fast forwarding. But those weird, like curated moments that are in and moments that are out, I found that like frustrating, and I didn't like that aspect to the writing, because I'm like, why is she choosing the best parts to not record? Like, why is she choosing to leave us out of some really crucial moments? It's like she sets you up, and it's almost like you're supposed to know that that's going to happen next, like they're going to have a child or they're going to get married or something big. And then the next time you get it, that's where the story's at. But like as a reader, for me, I did feel like I was missing, like I didn't think that I like literally missed some of the writing. I just felt like I missed the party, and I missed like these happy parts of the book. And I thought, the book wasn't excessively long. Why not give us those, just, I like the Hallmark movies
Another
too.
couple minutes. I just are, I need a little bit more background, a little bit more set the scene, please, for me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I just and I also don't understand. Please clear me up on this.
Yeah.
The mom said, I named you after your grandfather, and his name is Fred, but the grandfather's name is Alf.
I think it's Alfred.
Oh,
Yeah, I think so.
all right. That's a dumb one on me.
No, no, no. No, I thought I was going to need Judy to answer that because she's better with stuff like that. But no, I think that must be it.
Oh,
Yeah, I think so.
okay. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. No,
That's dumb.
no, that's
So
not.
no, I enjoyed the book. I really did. I got caught up. I think I mentioned this before, only because it made me remember my grandmother on my mother's side. The whole scene of going up to buy a compact
Oh,
on the way up to get some tea in the big building, the big department store.
yeah.
And that really put me back. And my grandmother on my mother's side was very much into that stuff and was very much I'm going to go in and buy a new compact
Yeah.
and that and go get a cup of tea while I'm there, kind of prim and proper. And that really took me back.
Oh,
And the whole when they opened that envelope, when he opened the envelope that was Ellen's in that last scene, and there was still a little bit of powder.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that took me back
Yeah.
big time. You
Yeah.
know,
And then
that
yeah.
that was, it didn't take much
No.
to take me back.
No, that was beautiful, that part. That it that was a beautiful scene too, because I love stuff in department stores too. And I didn't like the part with the thief and how she got hurt and all of that, but
Well, but she had to end up in the hospital
yeah,
somehow.
she did. It was another device. She had to end up
Yeah,
there.
yeah. She had to end up there, which was how Helen or Ellen's mom, got there
Yeah.
to fill out the envelope.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thrilled that who was it that read a prologue that we didn't get?
Judy. Yeah, that definitely was
Judy.
not in the recording. That was
Oh my
definitely not
God.
there. I
How
know she knew the
important
answer
was
right away.
that?
I was like, what? Yeah, no, that was good to know. It makes me wonder what else I'm missing with the book copy. Yeah, we found out at the beginning, Veronica, I think you were logged on, that there was a prologue that wasn't part of the audiobook, and it was fairly important. But
Like a
that was
lot
interesting.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
it answered a very big question in my mind.
Yeah. Did you
And
notice? Yeah, with that whole scene with the compact, that was another one of those scenes where I felt like a lot was left out. Like it ended and she was like alive
yeah,
and she was in the hospital, and I thought maybe she'd get better, even though we know she's like in her 90s. But then it was like
but she
next scene,
suddenly died.
then dead. Yeah. And
She
that was
suddenly
another one. It was
died.
like, yeah, it was frustrating because it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. More information
She
required.
had a broken bone and then she died.
Yeah. I know that's a different story. That's the part two. No, it's true. That was one of those parts that didn't gel. But I got the impression, I got the impression when I was reading it that that the author wrote different parts quite a ways apart. Like I got the impression that she was sometimes disconnected from the mood of the last scene. And it gave me the impression that she actually wrote scenes like the department store scene. It felt disconnected from the book, like at a completely different time than the parts around it. And
Which is why I stand by
yeah,
my assumption that the last oration was written almost at the beginning.
yeah. Yeah, the writing is very mechanical to me. It's not as it's not as organic as I think it is like an outline. Like she had a really structured outline for
She
what
had
she
a
meant to do.
very structured outline.
Yeah. And everything she made, like it's like square peg, circle hole. It's like she made lots of things fit. But there
Well, she was
was,
a lawyer and then a teacher before that.
yep, that's it. Yeah, because some of the fits are quite uncomfortable. And it's
Yeah,
all there. Like you can't falter, like
yeah.
it all is present, the important bits. But yeah, it doesn't all go smoothly for me. But again, I think people just love the book so much, and I did too, that it's like, okay, we'll let that go. But there was quite a few instances for me where I thought that didn't flow well at all, or I just felt,
Didn't like how this felt.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
device was too obvious, like the what she was trying to do was a little too obvious. um yeah, there were moments like that I thought the writing wasn't. I thought the book was great, but I thought often that the writing wasn't as great as the storyline. And yeah, the
I
moving around with gaps was hard.
I think if I were editor,
Mm.
and I have been an editor for 3 years, if I were an editor, I would have asked for some more fluff
Yeah,
in certain pieces, in certain parts
yeah,
of the. Um, I'm also really good at cutting down a lot of fluff.
yeah,
So I would have said, cut this way down and add a whole lot more here.
yeah.
And I don't know
Yeah, I don't
if,
feel like it was edited well. Like I
no,
particularly don't feel like it was. And even the stuff with the character Wendy, like, we dissect it in things like this, like when we're talking about books, but like really what was her function? I mean, she came in and and he got to know that he liked living in that area, and he finally had a neighbor he liked, and he liked playing with her kids, and maybe it softens him up, but she was in a great position to leave her husband who wasn't there anyway. I mean, she was all set. She had one foot on a banana peel, and it seemed like that's where we're
right?
going. And then it's like, well, why was she there? Like, what was the purpose of that? Because there's so much missing, like for me from the book in terms of like crucial scenes. But then the addition of some scenes and parts that I just thought not super useful. Like he could have gone to
Well,
the flea market and argued with Ellen about buying the sewing machine without having Wendy be the person at the stall.
But I do think the only reason, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. The only reason I can think of for Wendy to be there is to soften up Fred's character and to bring in the whole tent thing that his grandmother did for him, which softened him up some more.
Yeah.
And but yet it was ruined by his
outbursts at the end.
Outburst at the end with his mom.
Yeah, he was like super childish at the end when he got so mad at her.
Yeah,
I mean that was super childish.
I just don't get it.
No, I didn't like that at all. It might be that also Wendy, maybe her being there and him spending time with her was to show that he wasn't completely heartless after Samantha left him. He didn't have to mourn Samantha because he pretty quickly transitioned to being around another person. So he doesn't look like a jerk who like didn't have any feelings after the breakup. He kind of slides into another woman situation like immediately.
But couldn't that have been done as seamlessly with Ellen?
Yeah, it could have.
Without Wendy being there at all.
And it would have been better if it was with Ellen, because as it turned out, Ellen was part of the story.
Right.
It would have been more.
It could have woven a little bit more with Ellen there and not Wendy.
Right. I agree. If we had a little more built up with her family, maybe a few cagey hints, that would have been way more gratifying than the like you said, loose end with Wendy. Yeah. But it was a good book and we all loved the book. But yeah, I guess you could die. I don't agree with Judy that there isn't a perfect book. I think there are a lot of books that are quite perfect. And I do think that some of the problems with the writing with this book were really visible. But I still think it was a great book and super enjoyable.
I do too. I turned off my video because my battery is about dead.
Yep. Well, it's probably a good time to end because I'm gonna go out there and see what's up with the babes. I might make some lunches for tomorrow. But man, it was fun talking about this book.
It was. What's our next book? Do you know?
I don't know. I was thinking about I'm going to choose a book that I haven't read yet because I want to read it too and listen to it.
Sure.
I was thinking about an Alice Hoffman, like The Red Garden, or I've read a lot of hers, but I haven't read her last like 5. Because I'm kind of torn because I want some of the books I was interested in doing happen to be books again that when I read the synopsis, they're like multi-generational books that are interwoven, and I don't want to do 2 of those in a row. So, and I was like looking to do something that was a bit magical, like going into fall and like, Halloween and all of that.
That sounds fabulous. I'd love
maybe
something like that. Yeah.
Maybe.
I also have some quilting books, real super sweet, all about women who get together to quilt. I don't know if those interest you.
Yeah, I mean, I know that series. I don't want to do one that's a series because then I feel like it's incomplete. As we talk about,
they're all individual.
Oh yeah?
They don't have to be done in a sequence or anything.
Huh. Yeah, maybe. I'm also thinking about, it's an old book, but How to Make an American Quilt is a great book.
I would love, I do all fiber, me, but I'm not the only one here. So, whatever people think is interesting. I'd love to find more books about rug hooking, or the whole maker people,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I agree. I love that angle too. I think we'll probably, because I want to run it every 3 weeks, because I think most people listen on audio. So I feel like there's no point in like a month is so long, and then I feel like, okay, I'd rather run it every 3 weeks, because then it's like I'm listening to
Oh
audio.
yeah.
We might as well log on and chat and stuff. So I'm thinking I might even be able to sneak one in before I would want to do one that's, I don't want to say thriller, but something that's more spooky or magical or something like that. Or
Well, or even just a simple mystery,
yeah.
with something, with
Um,
I don't know, but
that's a great idea.
I will be at ATHA next week, so
Oh, that's
um
right.
I the biennial,
Yeah.
and having a audio book to listen to at night will be really super fabulous to listen to while I'm getting
Yeah.
ready for bed.